That down. Let's move on to this, shall we? So they made some announcements back at the beginning of the year that Disney was going to be going through company-wide percentage of layoffs, right? The one branch that didn't get affected yet was Pixar, but those layoffs have now come. As the Hollywood Reporter is reporting this, the long-expected layoffs at Pixar Animation Studios have begun. Today, leadership at the storied company that traces its origins to the late Steve Jobs and was bought by Disney in 2006 will notify employees of the reductions. The Hollywood Reporter has learned it is the biggest restructuring in Pixar's history, although top leadership is not impacted. Approximately 14% of Pixar's workforce, or around 175 employees, will be let go before the reductions. Approximately 1,300 people work at the animation studio. Now, it does mention down here, too, that Pixar employees have known about the layoffs, have known the layoffs were coming, if there's some solace to be had, in that its reductions are less than the 20%, because back when they announced layoffs, they said they were going to be 20% of Pixar was going to be laid off. It actually ended up only being 14%. Now, why these layoffs are happening at Pixar, to me, is kind of the more fascinating part. They write this: the layoffs are part of Disney chiefs Bob Iger's overarching mandate to return to a focus on quality versus churning out content for streaming, which was the priority for his short-lived successor, Bob Chapek. Disney execs have talked about returning to a focus on quality during numerous earnings calls this year, saying creative teams across the company were stretched too thin in the arms race to feed streamers. And this is the most interesting part here that I like the most. There were layoffs across all of Disney last year, but cuts at Pixar were delayed because of the production schedule, sources say. Pixar, led by Pete Docter, will no longer be focusing on direct-to-streaming series, but on its feature films. That excludes Win or Lose, which is set to debut later this year. All right, so there's a whole bunch here to unpack. Number one, what we knew was happening has now come to pass, that they've done the layoffs at Pixar. Thankfully, fewer layoffs than they anticipated. Now, of course, Pixar added a bunch of staff during the Bob Chapek era because Bob Chapek changed their direction to be a machine for Disney Plus and for streaming content. Of course, he took those films, Luca, Turning Red, and Soul, that were all meant to be theatrically released, and they dumped them on streaming, despite the fact that the theaters were opening up again. But whatever. The part of this story that I love, though, is the fact that they are refocusing themselves back to Pixar being a theatrical film company. Because to me, the dumping of those movies we just mentioned onto streaming, for a short-lived time, re-aiming them to doing some series for Disney Plus, all of that amounted to cheapening the Pixar brand. You know, we talked a lot, Rob, before about the fact that when a Pixar movie was coming out, it was an event. And when they made the decision to dump those movies on streaming and all that kind of stuff, it just took away from that specialness, that feeling of a Pixar movie coming. And the fact that Lightyear wasn't very good didn't help either. Let's not overlook that. But I mean, it took away from that event feeling of a Pixar release being an event. And I think them refocusing back to being a theatrical first company, to making these generational kind of stories that hopefully, like Up, like Ratatouille, like The Incredibles, like on and on and on and on. I think this is the right move. Now, can they get there? Can they get back to that glory? It's going to take more than just making a focus on feature films. And I think Peter Docter can do it, but we'll see. Guys, we want to thank the sponsor of today's video, Liquid IV. You know, it seems like summer's just designed to make us thirsty, whether it's camping, hiking, playing sports, and staying hydrated is the key to making the most of every moment. Because summer requires extraordinary hydration that's built for everyday dehydrating moments. Liquid IV hydrates you with benefits like electrolytes, essential vitamins, and clinically tested nutrients. With 3 times the electrolytes of the leading sports drink, plus 8 vitamins and nutrients in a single stick, it's clearly why Liquid IV is the #1 powdered hydration brand in America. It has 3 times the electrolytes of the leading sports drink. Just tear, pour, and live more. Just 1 stick plus 16 ounces of water hydrates better than water alone. With 8 vitamins and nutrients, non-GMO and free from gluten, dairy, and soy. There's no artificial colors or sweeteners, and it's got 4 delicious sugar-free flavors: white peach, green grape, raspberry melon, and lemon lime. So turn your ordinary water into extraordinary hydration with Liquid IV. Get 20% off your first order of Liquid IV when you go to liquidiv.com and use the code Campea at checkout. That's 20% off your first order when you shop Better Hydration today using promo code Campea at liquidiv.com. Anyway, what stood out to you a lot from this press release?
Well, I think that you nailed it. I mean, we've seen this across the board. Everybody wanted to go all in on streaming, and you forget, I mean, the reason Pixar was so successful was the care that they took in developing their stories. I mean, animated films like what Pixar was doing was very iterative. You know, they would do story reels, they would develop these stories literally over years and get them exactly the way they wanted them, which is why Pixar was the brand it was. I mean, they had the most carefully plotted, thought about, developed stories in the business. And that's why if you go back and you look at everything, the first decade of Pixar is full of some of the most wonderful animated movies ever. And like with Marvel, suddenly it's like, well, we need you to come back and fill up our streaming service with all your work. And it's like, what you're asking us to do is double our workload, which means that's half the quality. We can't, the very thing that you love about us, you're taking away by forcing us to make all of this other stuff, as opposed to keeping our work the way we keep it, which is what it's what is that old adage, John? You can either get it fast, or
fast,
cheap.
Get you good, fast,
or
cheap.
cheap.
Pick 2.
Pick 2.
Yeah.
Well, with streaming, they want everybody to pick 3. And
Yeah.
that's Pixar's problem. That was Marvel's problem. That's been everybody's problem. And that is the thinking that corporations make. Like, well, can't you just do it? Everything you do is going to be perfect, right? If the people like Star Wars, let's just make more of it. Without thinking about, no, Star Wars is special because of how long it took to make them. Not anymore. But now they're pulling back, and we're seeing people realize that, oh, streaming it's not an island. You know, you have to take the ocean needs to be taken into consideration too.
Also, let me address a real big elephant in the room, and maybe I shouldn't even
Dumbo?
bring it up. Close. Maybe I shouldn't even bring it up. But it also, for me, brings up a question that I've thought about a few times. Because listen, in recent years, Pixar still put out some amazing stuff, right? Like, again, Turning Red, I thought should have won the Academy Award for Best Animated Feature that year. I thought Soul was a beautiful little movie. Obviously, I love the latest Toy Story film. You know, Elemental.
Coco is amazing.
Coco, Elemental. Yeah, they've done some great stuff. Is it just me? And maybe it is. But when John Lasseter left, you know, while Pixar has made, and by the way, I understand why they had John Lasseter move on. That's not up for debate. I'm not debating that. I'm just saying that during the John Lasseter era, the era of the original Toy Story, the era of Monsters, Inc., the era of, you know, when like there was something timeless. Now, I don't know that I loved Elemental. Loved it. I think it's a marvelous movie. Don't know whether we're going to be talking about it in 10 years, right? The way we talk about Ratatouille, the way we talk about, you know, The Incredibles, the way, you know, I love Turning Red. I'm not 100% sure we're still going to be talking about it 10 years from now. So I don't know if that's part of the thing. Like, Pete Docter has done a great job taking over. But do we feel still today that absence of John Lasseter?
I think so. I mean, he was the heart and soul, the beginning of Pixar. I mean, long story short, yes.
Yeah.
Yes, I do think so.
So damn him for putting them in a position that they had to move him out. Anyway, guys, question is for you. What do you think about this? I mean, it's unfortunate there were layoffs happening at Pixar, but they've known for months that these were coming. And at least the layoffs are smaller than what they thought were going to be. But more importantly, the focus back on theatrical feature films as opposed to just churning out content for the streaming service. Whatever you guys think, jump down to the comment section below and let us know your thoughts. Hey guys, thanks so much for watching this video. Make sure you like the video, leave a comment, and subscribe to our channel. And don't forget, we have a daily podcast called the John Campea Show podcast, available on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or your favorite podcasting app of choice. Go and subscribe to it today so it'll be there when you need it.